Callum, how are you?
Hey, yeah, good, thanks. Good, thanks. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Very good, Callum. Very good. Thank you for joining me. We're here today to talk about IT and SaaS and sales recruitment in 2023 and beyond. But like with all my guests, I don't like to steal your thunder, and I don't want to do you the injustice of introducing you in the correct way. So the floor is yours to introduce yourself and to introduce Add Some Zest, your business.
Perfect. Really, really appreciate that, Matt. And this, again, thanks for having me. So, yeah, I don't think you would be doing yourself any injustice, but my background, I've been running tech sales recruitment teams for a decade. Kind of grew a team from 5 to 25 people, and had the fortune of doing that. And then last year launched Zest, Add Some Zest, with the vision of radically changing the perception of how recruitment agency serves its people, so kind of internal employees, customers, and communities. Because I think recruitment still has a bit of a stigma attached to it, in terms of the kind of service levels, how recruiters just act, and how they serve their communities. So effectively still focused around sort of growing go-to-market teams across all levels of SaaS businesses, but really looking to change the perception as to how recruitment agencies serve those audiences. So yeah, that's a short sort of synopsis of me and Add Some Zest.
So before we get into some proper questions about IT sales recruitment, if I'm coming to Add Some Zest, and your mandate is to change the perception of recruitment and how things operate, etc. What can I expect differently from Add Some Zest versus another recruiter in the space, maybe?
It's a good question. So I think so. We tend to work exclusively with all of our clients. So we've got a really good understanding of every customer that we've got. I think a lot of recruiters will kind of just spray and pray different candidates out to different places, and it's probably not conducive to the best experience. I think as well, a lot of recruitment agencies as well. And recruitment's evolved quite a lot, but it tends to be a proposition that's more suited towards a business, so a Z scaler rather than the candidate. And the biggest thing that we will do in terms of how we incentivize, how we measure success, is we don't necessarily measure that on the commercial billings or kind of, I guess from a SaaS world, like the ARR or what someone's actually delivering. We assess success based off of an NPS score. So how well one of our consultants is serving not only the candidate, but the customer, and we'll incentivize off of that. We'll really look at that experience. And I think it's just changing the behavior as to how then a recruiter sort of operates, really. Like if Matt comes to a Zest recruiter compared to another recruiter, we're going to keep you up to date. We're going to, even if there's no update, we'll make sure we're doing that, because ultimately we'll be incentivized and measured off of your experience. So that's one of the main things. And we utilize a lot of video. So because we only recruit in the go-to-market space and predominantly sales, a CV is as useless as a kind of a chocolate teapot for us. Like you want to see someone's personality, you want to see how they come across, you really want to see them as an individual, which ultimately opens more doors for good salespeople, and it mitigates a lot of risk for our customers, but also saves them time in seeing people that just aren't right. And we could have found that out before they sat wasting an hour.
Okay, wicked. And yeah, I definitely agree. Right, like if you're going to incentivize your team members to pay basically upon a customer experience, then of course people are going to gravitate to what's going to help them get paid, right? So if you're incentivizing customer experience, completely, I get that. I get that behind it. But
and we attract a different type of person. Like there's nothing wrong with, I think it is kind of recruitment or sales historically anyway, kind of a macho, who's billing the most type environment. Actually, I think it's a service game. We're ultimately making a big career decision for someone, and it should be based off of the experience. Of course, there's a commercial element, and we need to look after that as well. And there's still a performance based off of that. But you're absolutely right. And we just generally, hopefully, as we evolve, will attract a different type of person into the recruitment industry.
Wicked. So thank you for the introduction, and great to hear about Add Some Zest. let's talk about now IT SaaS sales recruitment in 2023 and, even into 2024 right now. So your ear is to the ground every single day. What
Yeah.
would you say are the major trends that you're seeing right now in the market?
Number one, it's quite an unusual time, I think, in just the SaaS world in terms of how people are employing what the kind of general outlook and landscape is. That's a really short-term point, by the way, Matt. So like, if you look now at the start of 2023, a lot of redundancies from the kind of bigger organizations, which then has a domino effect of other organizations perhaps being a bit more cautious about growth, and the kind of the venture capitalists, PE firms, high net worth individuals who invest the money into SaaS that ultimately initiates and it just kind of fuels growth across the industry. Their mindset, generally, you can't say this for everyone, has moved from kind of growth at all costs, which means hiring lots of salespeople and really, whether SDR, whether AE, whether leadership, hiring lots of people, not necessarily focused on profit today, understanding that ramp period, and they'll get profit over an X period of time. So it's gone from kind of growth at all costs to more sort of profit focused growth in terms of the investment decisions. Also, because of that, and because of some kind of contagion within the banks and Silicon Valley Bank and all of the kind of the news about that the kind of Series A, Series B, Series C funding might have slowed down slightly. So it's in that kind of short-term period, it's quite a slow time to some degree in terms of how the market's operating, in terms of how many businesses are recruiting salespeople. And as I said, the larger businesses still making redundancies, which actually means it's gone from quite a candidate short market to kind of a market that's potentially flooded with candidates. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. So that's kind of just a general short-term theme. But because of there's more candidates, employer branding, it kind of it starts becoming a bit more competitive for those people that are looking for talent. So actually, the candidates who are out there are really asking more questions, I think, of employer brands, how they position themselves, maybe their mission, vision, values, and really tying themselves closely into those, and that's a big factor. So so that would kind of be another trend, and outside of that, there's still diversity and inclusion is still very much sort of that's not necessarily a trend, but it's still very much on the top of a lot of people's agenda, in terms of making sure that we are, and more at the entry level, I think this is where you can make an impact the most change and really move the needle the most in that area. So kind of getting more diverse groups and underrepresented talent into tech, and mainly, as I say, through that SDR kind of position, then to develop up through the tech industry. So I think that's kind of a general barometer of the market and what we're seeing and what I'm seeing. And
all amazing stuff, by the way. Super interesting to hear about that. Have you seen, maybe because the dynamic of the market has shifted, and let's say, you said that there's a trend towards more profit and maybe conservatism rather than throwing everything at the wall. Would you say then that the percentage of or the split of types of hiring, and what I mean by that is maybe in a previous market it was very much SDR led, entry level. Perhaps now, where there's a bit more maturity required, there's more sales leadership or AE, senior AE being hired. Would you say that that's a trend that you're seeing because of the?
Maybe. I think ultimately, look, hiring people with experience mitigates some risk, and when you're looking to make profit-led decisions, being able to hire the best monitor or barometer of any success of a salesperson will always be past performance. Past performance is always the best indicator of future performance. And ultimately, if you are hiring 10 SDRs who come straight from entry level kind of background, you've got no idea. You can hire with all goodwill in the world. the right personality types, etc. But there'll always be attrition there. There'll always be people who come into sales and it's maybe not what they expected. So you'll have certain amounts of dropout there, and the ramp period will be longer. So for SDR hiring, it's always a bit more of a long-term play, because you're trying to, as I say, cultivate and introduce diverse groups, and it's a great sort of area to do that. But when you're making, as you say, kind of, you're more focused on profit, and that certainly is something, as I say, that's happening. You want a bit more assurance that this person that you're going to bring on is going to deliver at certain period of time. So if they've delivered X ARR in the past, chances are it's the skills there. It's just the training of the product and really getting them up to speed as quickly as you can. So yes, it doesn't necessarily mean people are stopping hiring SDRs, but certainly there's more kind of mid-level hiring. Actually, maybe in some instances as well, when people are hiring for SDRs, they're perhaps looking for other people who have either some sort of sales experience or perhaps have been an SDR and giving them a slight increase in their salary or slight incentive to join a different business.
Okay. So this is kind of a related topic. If I'm a business right now who's hiring, what do I need to be doing to attract candidates?
So I think it's a really good question. It's so multifaceted that I think firstly you need to understand exactly who you're looking to attract. I think sometimes people will just fly into a hiring decision. So understand who you're looking to attract, who needs to be involved in that decision-making process, and really get clarity on that first, because often people will say, yeah, we need to hire SDRs, and then just all go at it. And then the kind of interview process becomes convoluted because there's lots of different people that need to be involved and they didn't realize they need to be involved, etc. So firstly, really understand what you're looking for, how you're looking to attract that person, and what you need to achieve in order to find that person. And in order to really attract good people, there's a whole host of things that actually have changed in terms of what candidates are looking for. And I think a lot of candidates aren't necessarily as financially minded as they were post-pandemic, really, having gone through a pandemic where actually maybe we spend more time at home, maybe more time with the family, etc. So if I'm speaking to an employer and they're saying, yeah, well, we're paying 10% more than the market rate, actually that might not incentivize the people that they want, or attract and seduce the people that they want to their hiring table. It's really looking at their benefits package, really looking at the kind of all-encompassing offering that our business has. And that again goes back to exactly what they stand for. Employer brand, that's a longer term game map, but it's still really important. So mission, vision, values, what they stand for, kind of testimony and development plans that other people within that team have followed, because that is what sales candidates are looking for now. A candidate will, so subjective, but if it was a 30k offer next to a 40k offer, people would want to know what the development plan was, what the benefits are in place, how flexible are they in terms of their working environments, etc. And if the 30k offer had a better narrative and story alongside those things, candidate would more often than not take a 30% reduction in salary in order to join a business where they can genuinely see themselves progressing from an SDR through to an AE, through to an enterprise AE, and then maybe through to leadership or whatever. Because ultimately, that's important. What would be important to you?
Oh, well, you can't ask me questions. I'm the interviewer.
Is that allowed?
No. Okay. So if I'm coming at it from a seller's perspective, right, what would be important to me? It's exactly what you just said. Of course, money is important, but being a relatively young man, I am looking for somewhere where I can learn. And, I'm not saying that I've a lack of sales experience or anything like that, but in my career, compared to many other sellers in the market, I'm probably earlier on. And when you're working for playbook companies and you have a desire to continue working for playbook companies throughout your career, you want to be in a place where you're earning, but also you're learning, because this is a long game, right? A career is maybe 25, 30 years long. and to spend maybe the first 10 or 20% of your career learning how to do it so you can be ultra successful in the back end of the career, or even in the minimum to a back end career, that would be more important for me. So I completely agree that salary is not the main thing as you begin. And any of my bosses who are watching this, don't just ignore the thing about
yeah, exactly. Yeah, salary is the most important. Salary is the most important. But no, you're bang on. You're bang on. I think that's a lovely saying, and it's so relevant in today's market. Like, you need to be earning, of course you do, but you need to be learning. I've always, and I've just turned 30, so I'm at a point now where I can really realize this. But anyone I speak to below 30, and I don't know why that's been my barometer, I've always said my advice to myself and to anyone I've ever led or worked with: make a decision based off of what you'll learn, or not what you learn. Because actually, you say 25 to 30 years, most careers, and we're in a really weird bubble where people earn a ridiculous amount of money, but ultimately careers are going to be 30, 40 years long in many senses. And I've worked in recruitment for a decade. I've been really fortunate to kind of grow teams, but it's what I've learned in that period, which I'm really thankful for, not what I've earned. And of course there's a balance there, because you can't, it's not like we're not working in non-for-profits, etc., and it can't be kind of charity or philanthropy. But it is really important to actually not only see where you can learn, what you can learn, but also see where that's going to take you over a certain period of time and want to develop with a company.
So we kind of talked about it from the company's perspective, and also I gave my perspective on what I think. But if there was maybe one or two things that you think a seller, one or two skills or attributes that you think a seller should be developing right now to be putting their best foot forward when they go into a new job, or to get hired into a new job. I know we've spoken about past performance being the leading indicator, but those one or two other things which you think a SaaS seller can do right now to put their best foot forward in the future to get a job.
I think it's standing out, and it's being authentic to that. So whatever they can do in order to really elevate themselves and their brand, personal brand, I think is big. And I think a lot of people are putting more emphasis and kind of the extracurricular stuff that people will do in order to stand out. It's kind of it's at times it can be such a competitive market. Everyone wants to make the same moves to the same super sexy kind of SaaS businesses, and move from SDR to AE to an enterprise sales role as quickly as possible. So anything that people can do from a kind of extracurricular perspective, that could just be producing content on social media. That could be creating communities in certain areas, and that could be exactly what you're doing in developing a podcast, which is extracurricular. You don't need to do this to be a successful seller and to hit your targets and to develop your career. However, when you're up against someone who doesn't have that, it's a great thing to be able to do. And it kind of moves it. It's a kind of parallel point, but it's something that I don't think it can be forgotten now. And networking is huge. I've built a career, and a recruitment career is based off the power of your network, but really putting yourself in situations well, you're out of your comfort zone a little bit, and you're really building communities. You're engaging with people across lots of different organizations, lots of different viewpoints, diversity of thought, which will ultimately add value to the job that you're doing today, but also add value to your perspective as you move into a next role, or you're sat in front of the interview at your dream job. Having that diversity of thought and having a big network of people, and actually ultimately someone that you could meet doing this or out at a networking event, will almost certainly be someone who can influence a decision that will get you in front of the right interviewer or the right hiring manager for a job that could be your dream job. So I think they're two things that I'd focus on, kind of parallel, but that's what I'd say for that.
Okay. So got the things that the sellers need to work on should they want to make a transition into a new company. What types of companies are sellers looking to go to now? And I know we mentioned a moment ago about places that they can learn, but what are the other things, right? Is it market leadership? Is it RSUs? Is it being in a hot emerging market? Is it flexibility? What are the things, or the types of places that people want to move into as the next hot job or hot company?
So it's a good question. There's so much subjectivity to that, but I'll give you two areas. One that's less subjective. Number one is the leader, or the manager they'll be working for. You choose a manager. You don't choose a company in many senses. And ultimately, if a good leader's at a good business, it's a really good barometer that business is a good business to work for. So having a really good understanding, and making sure if you're going for a recruiter, they've got a really good understanding of the leader and that their credentials, the sort of person they're looking for, the sort of person that will thrive under that individual. Because as we know, different leaders will have different strengths, and different people will work well under different managers. So I think that's something that will never go, and certainly isn't subjective across people. The leader and the person that they'll be working with and alongside. The second thing, which I'm just noticing more, and this is kind of more of a trend, again, people want not to necessarily tech for good, but in the next generation, people are having more conversations with me, maybe coming from cybersecurity, maybe coming from data, maybe coming from something that's slightly more complex, or something that's slightly more difficult to understand, to actually selling something that they can really get behind and relate to. Now that might be clean tech, that might be anything in that kind of sustainability space, which a lot of people that I'm speaking to, so very successful AEs within sort of, say, security, data, that sort of space, wanting to move into that sort of space. Could be around wellness, well-being. Placed a couple of very sort of senior business developers from a kind of more traditional tech kind of SaaS background into that space so far this year, and that was a real focus of theirs. So actually doing something that feels impactful in an area that personally they would be pretty passionate about, is something that we and I am noticing more, Matt.
Okay. All interesting stuff, mate, and super cool to hear. Another thing that I wanted to speak about, and I've got the question written down in front of me. It's so
Sounds daunting.
there's a sometimes when you hear recruiter, right, and we'll dive into this in a little bit more in a minute, but you hear recruiter and you just instantly switch off, like it's a bit of a dirty word, and kind of sometimes a necessary evil. But
yeah.
what would you say for someone like me, or for someone, anyone else who's in IT tech sales? How do you leverage a recruiter right now? If I want to go out and get a new job at one of these top companies, I'm looking for my next career move, how do I best use a recruiter to do just that?
So it's a good question, and it's why I started Zest with as I say, and that's paramount and central to our vision of radically changing the perception of that recruiter and how they serve their communities. But there's a couple of things I would note there. Number one, if you go into any relationship with that, so if you think of recruiter and you kind of straight away think, oh God, this is going to be terrible, you kind of already go in with a perception. So try and eradicate that and lead with a position of trust. But it's kind of building two-way trust. So it's finding someone that you align well with. You think you speak to them, you think they've got your best interests at heart, and build a relationship with that person. And also don't just, I think a recruiter, as you say, necessary evil at the time when you're looking for a job, and therefore it becomes quite a transactional relationship. Now, it doesn't need to be a dirty word. If you're partnering with so for example, yourself and me, quite young chaps, early in our career, having a relationship just with someone who's got your best interest at heart, who's got their ear to the ground, knows Matt, knows what you're after, knows where you'll be good, knows where you'll hate, etc., etc., etc. It's just a really good relationship to have. You don't need to invest that in so many different people, but it's like having a friend. It's just a friend that you just keep in contact fairly regularly. You know, if there's anything that's like bang on what you'll be looking for, they'll give you a call. So it's building a relationship, and it's building trust. It's not looking at that as like a transactional, right, I need to get a job, god, I'll call Calum. It's having regular beers, and not having someone or kind of just touching in for a coffee, not having someone that's going to really trying to push you square peg into round hole. But when the right thing comes up, and when you think it's the right time to move, you can have a really kind of open, transparent conversation, and you can have a consultative conversation with someone who's truly got your best interests at heart. So that's what I would say. Build long-term relationships with people that you trust, and weed out the wheat from the chaff, and find someone that you can honestly trust, who you think's got your best interests.
And I think part of that, and I hate to tarnish everyone, all recruiters with the same brush. Didn't mean to do that in any way, but I think content and LinkedIn is like an amazing way to differentiate, because if I think about Adam and Aaron and yourself, like the content that you guys put out is always focused on education and value and giving perspective and thought leadership. And so that makes me, I follow that content and I find it interesting. And so that for a seller, for anyone who's buying something, that's more enjoyable than being approached in LinkedIn DMs or whatever, than saying, I've got an opportunity, can we talk?
There's a very, just sorry to interject, there's a very clear strategy behind that as well, Matt. It kind of goes to my previous point. I'm not looking to ram jobs down people's throats. If you ever see me post a job on LinkedIn, then I'll be smart. I don't think I've ever done it, but I do post 2 or 3 things a week that are close to my heart, that will build communities and build groups of like-minded people who, when the right time comes, I can speak to, or they know they can always lean on me if they're having a conversation around salary, or they want some sort of benchmark of salary or benefits, or just to chat about what's out there. So I think exactly that. Our content and everything that we do is based off of that long-term relationship, and actually developing close, tight-knit relationships with people who are in our space. It's not got this bloody super sexy AE role, and we're hoping, because ultimately we're not going to get too many people from that. What we need to do is build long-term relationships that as soon as something right comes up, I can easily just give you a call, and also understand that now might not be the right time. And the job searching and job hunting is so about timing that there's no point me trying to force you to move now, but when the right time comes, I just hope that at least we would be on your radar, and that we'd have a conversation at that point. So it's very intentional, that I think that content kind of creation.
So gonna dive off topic in a minute, but I've got one question that I'm sure sellers are interested in, and that is where companies are spending money. So what is the hot job right now? Is it SDR? Is it the VP of sales? Is it the AE? If I want to earn top dollar, where is the demand in
I think if you and again, it depends, qualify out, and it depends what good looks like to you. It depends what success looks like, and it depends what your goals are. But if you are looking, if you're a seller and you're someone who's just getting into the industry today, and you want to forge out a career that maximizes your earnings, then you want to develop yourself into an enterprise account exec role within a good market, good product market fit, as quickly as you possibly can. It's not necessarily obviously VP of sales to some degree, or any sort of leadership role, but if you're just looking to earn, a good enterprise AE should earn more than leadership, and should always, because if they're closing 7, even kind of 8-figure deals in some instances, it's that they're gonna be earning a decent percentage of that, and they're going to be taking home more than anyone within the business. So from an earnings perspective, you want to be trying to get there as quickly as possible.
Okay. Awesome. So we're kind of coming to the end of the allotted questions that I had, and we've been chatting for about half an hour. But typically when I interview people, they're an IT buyer, they're on the buyer side, and what I usually ask them is their perspective on sellers and how PG happens, etc. I'm not sure specifically who would be PGing into you, Calum. I'm just trying to work out who would be trying to sell to you, but can I ask your perspective on that? So when people PG into you, try and get in contact with you, want to develop a conversation with you, what endears you to take a conversation? How should people do that?
I think I come from a slightly different angle, and this could lead me to getting loads of cold calls. But
yeah,
because we deal with salespeople every day, and it's a bloody tough role, I will always be open and receptive to taking a call. Always be polite and sort of hear people out. What really stands out to me, I want to see someone who is creative. I want to see someone who's actually thought about their approach. And being pretty structured with their cadence of approach, i.e., probably won't come back to the first message, but I want that to have some sort of personalization in there. Then I'd be far more interested in picking up or hearing someone out with kind of a voice note, maybe using video. I don't know if that's Vidyard, Loom. We use a recruitment specific video, but it'd be able to record a quick video and say the exact reason why they wanted to get in contact with me. So something that actually shows that this isn't kind of a mass blanket kind of message. And one of the beauties that people have got with me is I do post quite a lot of content. So it's quite a glass box into to my career, my life. And I have some lovely ones that maybe cite my wee dog Paolo or something. And actually straight away then they've actually taken the time to try and do something different from other people. So from an SDR's perspective, Matt, it's something that's personalized, it's something bespoke to me, and I will always hear someone out from if they're able to do that, and they actually call as well. I'm crap at email, I'm crap at LinkedIn message, but if someone calls me, I will pick up, and I'm always surprised actually at the amount of people that put together a really good sequence of messages and then never call me. I'm probably not gonna have time to message someone back and say, yeah, let's arrange a call. But if they called me, I'd give them 5-10 minutes. It's making sure that you always follow up with a call. And I think in some instances that can be quite old school in a sense. Whereas when we started it was literally all calling.
No, I completely agree. Calling for some it can rub them up the wrong way, right? And it can be annoying. And I do get it, especially if you're in a senior IT role and your phone is going off maybe 10, 15, 20 times a day. It's unrealistic to be able to speak to everybody.
Yeah.
But if, to even qualify somebody out, if you're an IT buyer, to pick the phone up, hear what that person's got to say, align it to your tech roadmap that you've got in your head. I think that the easiest thing is speaking over the phone. Easiest thing.
Yeah. I think sometimes as well you paint this picture in your own head that, and I'm not quite as au fait or as knowledgeable within that kind of IT manager, IT director, etc. That this person's getting cold called all day. I'm not sure they are anymore. Again, you might have a better perception, but I think in some instances it's like the attractive guy or girl at a club. People assume no one's going up to them because they're kind of sat there. But actually, I think I'd be surprised if people were getting quite as many cold calls as they maybe were once upon a time.
Okay, so I'm going to, after this final question, I'm going to give you the floor to wrap up as however which way you want. But quick fire, I want to hear your one piece of advice for sellers looking to get a job this year. and for companies looking to hire sellers this year?
I think one piece of advice for sellers is treat the recruitment process like you're treating the sales process. You're a salesperson, so make sure you get in front of the right people. Make sure that you be creative with your approach. Make sure you do something personalized to the individual that you're approaching. And again, I'm not turning business away from myself, but often that's the best way. Approach someone if you feel that you've got a good background to work for someone. Approach them in a creative, polite, professionally persistent way, and you'd be surprised how many people will come back and be receptive to that and give you the floor. From there,
the
floor is yours to really impress. And if you are kind of you are a good fit, then you can absolutely show that, and you'll be given the time of day to do that. In terms of businesses, I think my advice for businesses is, and I could go on for days about this, but we haven't spoken in great depth about the kind of hiring manager type stuff. But look at experiences as well as experience. I think it's so important not to. It's so many businesses employ people from a competitive company just because they're at a competitive company and they think they're a good fit. Actually, a closely value aligned hire, someone who is a great cultural fit, who has the core competencies and skills to do the job, will be so much better in my mind than someone who's just got the right experience on paper. And if you train, develop, and enable that person to be successful, then looking at experiences and looking at what someone can do, not what someone can't do, opens up the floor to so much more diverse talent pools, diversity of thought, things that will ultimately add huge value to your teams, and positively impact your bottom line, even if you're looking at it selfishly. So I think that's it. Look at experiences as well as experience, and look at what people can do, not what they can't do.
Okay. Well, 30 minutes almost, or over 30 minutes of like gold dust for everyone there. So Calum, thank you so much for giving your perspective and for joining me. Just going to give you the floor to end with, in case you want to announce any news at Zest, any last wrap-up thoughts?
I don't think so, Matt, but I appreciate it. I think as we've said throughout the conversation, I think, look, I'd love to speak to anyone who is, and it doesn't need to be someone like I'm always here. A good recruiter should always be there to genuinely add advice, and there's of course a commercial benefit to what we do, and it's important that we deliver lots of good quality hires to some great businesses. But we're also here from an advisory perspective, and we're here to develop relationships and ultimately do exactly what you're trying to do with this podcast, just better the lives of salespeople and make sure that people develop their careers as quickly as they possibly can. That might be now, and that might be looking for a job in the next couple of months, or that could just be someone that we can speak to, and we're lucky to be very well connected and have lots of different things. A couple of things actually that I'll just quickly say for a seller looking for a job, because I haven't touched upon this. Something that, and I'm not paid commission by these guys, but something that if you're looking for a job at a bigger organization, and we probably won't be the best people to help there in terms of like the behemoth kind of big businesses, have a look at RepVue, spelled REPVUE. I don't know if you know it, Matt, but it's kind of people look at Glassdoor, and Glassdoor is so generic across sort of every different department of an organization, but RepVue just gives you a very concise score as to a seller's perception of a business, how many sellers within that organization are hitting quota, are actually earning their OTE. And I think when you're doing your due diligence about your next career opportunity, it's really important to understand that, because ultimately you want to earn your package, and you also do want to work for a business that you know that their sellers are really happy.
Indeed. Well, RepVue, I've taken it down. Anyone else who's having a look. But no, Calum, thank you so much. Appreciate your help. Appreciate your insights. Great to speak to you.
Don't be silly. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, mate.